This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody.
Nailed it.
Joined as always by our Barth. That's a fit. That's a match.
No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
The island is expanding for Efton Chisholm. Right?
Okay, why is it an island for Efton Chisholm? That is a cornerback thing. That is a cornerback thing.
Efton Chisholm, regardless, you want to get mad, I'm calling it an island.
I'm not saying it's not deserved. I just think it's a weird analogy.
The island is expanding.
But it's not an island. He's not a cornerback. That doesn't make any sense.
People are building houses. They're buying land, and then they're building houses. So if you want some land on Efton Chisholm Island, Alex, you better start to purchase right now because it's getting a little crowded over there.
That was before the Efton Chisholm moment even happened.
I stand by my take.
That was
you need a better term for that thing. Efton Chisholm's making the football team. He's a roster lock.
You have an island, and there's real estate available on the island. Like in the old days, like before Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket got all populated, there was open grass and open dirt for people to build houses on. Efton Chisholm Island now, it's bumping. This is Oak Bluffs.
This is where
we got multiple
What about being on the
cities.
train? You could have first class tickets on the train. How about that?
No.
Efton Chisholm City. You can still do real estate in Efton Chisholm City.
Island makes more
just
sense.
not island. It doesn't make sense.
It makes more sense. And that was the last Thursday's show, Alex, before the preseason game even happened. That was just based off of practice. So now this Efton Chisholm Island, the island is bumping now. We got restaurants, we got bars, we got beaches. We're full on, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, Efton Chisholm Island. That's where Chappie, is in there somewhere.
The Patriots play the Raiders week 1. Their best receiver's Jacoby Myers, right?
Yes.
Could me and Jacoby Myers both be on Christian Gonzalez Island then in week 1, technically? Because if Christian Gonzalez shuts him down, we're going to talk about him being on Gonzalez Island. I hear
what you're saying, but this is
But also, I am a fan of Christian Gonzalez, so do you understand you understand why it doesn't work?
I understand, but it's different.
In this scenario, it kind of passes,
it's a different context of using this term.
When there's like a UDFA corner, late round draft pick corner in a year or two in camp that absolutely pops, you're going to need a new term. So I'm just saying start now so it's all standard.
Anyways, we're going to get to Efton Chisholm. Not that we didn't just talk about him just now, but we're going to do 3 up, 3 down from the preseason game against the Vikings. A little bit of a regular season mode, if you will, in terms of the show format today. We're going to go back and we're going to recap the week that was, talk a little bit of Drake Maye, 3 up, 3 down. And then we're also going to preview the Giants game, but mostly talk within the prism of the Giants game of the roster cut down days now 6 days away. We're less than a week away from roster cuts. So bubble players, Alex, you published something about bubble players the other day. We're going to talk about that. And I know that we're going to talk a lot about the trade market because it's the NFL hot stove, if you will, is maybe a little hotter this year at this time of year than I remember it being in the past. Like there's some big names that are floating around there, like Trey Hendrickson and Terry McLaurin and Micah Parsons, but even some little names, not little is the wrong word, smaller names, like we have locally here that are starting to make waves and rumors and all that. So we're going to get to all of that, but I want to open the show with a look back at this past week and specifically discuss some of the things with Drake Maye, because whether it's here, whether it's your station, whether it's just the ether narrative out there right now, I do think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves with some of the commentary on Drake Maye in terms of where he's at right now. And this isn't to make excuses. This isn't to apologize for him or anything like that. We're gonna talk critically. We're gonna evaluate his performance critically here in a minute. But I just want to put some things about where Drake Maye is in perspective for everybody, because I feel like we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves with some of these things. This is a 22-year-old kid that's made 12 NFL starts, that's going into his second year. Just in terms of NFL years, I just want to rattle off a few things, but most of these guys that I'm going to bring up, we're still in college at this point, right? When Drake Maye is, in terms of years on this planet.
Right.
But in terms of NFL years, you have Patrick Mahomes started one game his rookie season. It was a Week 17 game where they rested Alex Smith, I should say, not benched, rested Alex Smith and gave Mahomes the game because the Chiefs were already in the playoffs. They had nothing to play for. Meaningless Week 17 game. They gave the kid the start. So Patrick Mahomes at this point in his career had one NFL start under his belt. At this point in his career, Josh Allen was coming off a season where he completed 52% of his passes and threw more interceptions than touchdowns. At this point in his career, Joe Burrow tore his ACL his rookie season and had not a very good year in Cincinnati, tore his ACL, was coming back off the ACL. Lamar Jackson, his rookie year, only started half the season in Baltimore, won some games, made the playoffs, but there were a lot of questions. We talked about it at the time. A lot of questions about him as a passer.
It was a far cry from the Lamar Jackson we see on Sundays now.
He was at that point was like a running quarterback, right?
A lot of development.
And we weren't sure. There. So all I'm getting at, it just from a bigger picture sense with Drake Maye, is I know we all want the answer. Like, we all want to know if he's the guy or not. We all want to know if he can lead them or not. But let's just take a pause and just recognize that he's a young kid. He's still developing. Let's give him time. Let's give Josh McDaniels time. Let's give Mike Vrabel time to work with him. And let's see where this thing goes. By the end of the year, if we still have doubts or we still have concerns, and that's a different story. But right now, they haven't played any games yet. And I'm hearing... I haven't heard anybody actually say it, Alex, but I hear people wanting to say the B word, which is bust.
Yeah.
And we are way, way, way too early in this process to be throwing things around like that. So that's just my soapbox. I listen and I read, and I'm not knocking anybody in particular. I just know that this is all out there, that like Drake Maye, is he clutch? Is he a winning player? Does he have it? Like all these different types of things, which are fair questions in the bigger picture, but let's see it. Like, let's give it a beat. Let's give it a pause, and let's get there first before we start throwing things around. That is my defense of Drake Maye. And then I do want to break down some of the things that are the goods and the bad. Like, I don't want to, I'm not shying away from the bad stuff, but I just think we have to keep it in perspective.
So I think this is where you see, when we do the draft, you bring up, and the nerds love this. We don't need to make this an analytics thing, but the nerds love the early breakout player, right? Is the term you use. The guy that has more success at 19, 20, 21 years old, as opposed to the guy that really doesn't start, becoming a star player in college till 21, 22 years old. I think, and that's why I don't disagree on the nerds with that. I just don't think, oh my God, I needed math to tell me the players that are good when they're younger are also going to be good when they're older. But I think that the COVID era of college football may have proved a temporary exception to that, because I think it can swing further in the other direction, where when you have guys who have had 6-7 years of development in college before they get to the NFL, that is going to show up immediately. And that's guys like Jaden Daniels. That's guys like Michael Penix, right? And then you have the flip side, like Anthony Richardson.
Bo
Nix had more starts than anybody. You should have brought up the old man, Bo Nix. And then on the flip side, you have Anthony Richardson, who there were also guys who were coming out too young. Like, I think you can come at it. You also had this element of it being a copycat league where Josh Allen breaks out. The Colts see Anthony Richardson, who threw, I think, less than 400 passes his entire college career. He was just young. He didn't break out young. He was just young. I think Drake Maye exists somewhere in the middle of that. My big thing with Drake Maye, when you talk about a bust, it's a player whose talent was misidentified. I don't think Drake Maye's talent was misidentified. The talent is there. You see it in flashes. I think Drake Maye is at the crossroads where many young players across positions, frankly, across sports, kind of hit after their first year. Not every, and this is where it goes, this is where I bring back the age. Like, the older players have already worked through a lot of, and the NFL is obviously different. Jaden Daniels had a lot of ups and downs in his college career, and he kind of learned how to work through that over multiple years. Michael Penix had maybe more ups and downs than anybody.
Yeah.
And he learned how to work through it. Drake Maye was a redshirt, had a great first year at UNC, lost a lot of talent, and was not quite as good, but still good as second year, and that's basically Coaching staff turnover too, right? Yeah. So I think what Drake Maye's working through, which again is not uncommon, the last thing that comes for young players, especially at the quarterback position, is consistency. There's a lot of young players, and you see flashes of what they can do, but if it only ever stays flashes, it's irrelevant. Because if you're a high pick, you're expected to be more than that. It's about consistency. Can you do the good things on a consistent basis? Can you cut out the bad things on a consistent basis? So where I'm at with Drake Maye right now is the talent is there. I feel comfortable saying talent that we saw when he was in the draft process last year, like, check. We identified that correctly on the outside. Obviously, more importantly, the Patriots identified that correctly on the inside. But can he make use of that talent at a consistent level as a pro? That's, to me, what ultimately what year 2 is about. There's ways that manifests itself, right? Cutting down on the turnovers, taking better care of himself when he runs the football, things like that. But what that all falls under the umbrella of, this is a very talented individual. Can he display that talent on a regular basis?
Yeah, it's a good point in terms of the timeline. And one other name I wanted to bring up, not to pick on him, but Mac Jones, after his rookie season, everybody was pretty high on him after his rookie year. And to your point about the early breakout and the talent and that whole side of it, that ended up being Mac Jones plateauing. Like, that was the peak of Mac Jones in his NFL career. Whereas with Drake Maye, he might not have had the immediate success that Mac Jones had, but you would like to think that over the course of the next 2 to 3 years, he is going to rise to a level that was much higher than what Mac Jones was. I brought up all these other quarterbacks not to say that he's going to go win multiple MVPs like Lamar or he's going to win multiple Super Bowls like Mahomes. I just want to keep in perspective that a lot happens in the first 2 or 3, 4 years of a quarterback's career. And there's, like you said, like, there's a lot of roller coaster to start for most guys, whether it's sitting like Mahomes or it's uneven play like Josh Allen. Like, there's a lot of that goes on. And right now we are in the middle of it with Drake Maye, but we're not at the end where we're starting to make proclamations about Drake Maye. We're on the ride. We are on the ride. Like, the roller coaster has started, but we are on the middle of the ride and we're right at the drop, but we're not on the other side yet. So let's just let him develop. I have a lot of faith in McDaniels especially, but Vrabel too, from the intangible stuff that we've seen Vrabel pushing Drake with. I have a lot of faith in all that in the infrastructure that they have around him, more so than I did, especially last year. So I'm optimistic. Now, I do want to talk about him in an objective way too, and not just defend the wall on Drake Maye, because the preseason tape, in my mind, hasn't been great. It just hasn't been very good. Now, why is that? I think there's 2 different conversations to have there. You know, I think everybody can watch his film or watch the game live against Minnesota and see the high throws that he starts the game out with. And that's very tangible. That's very apparent. But I'm less concerned about those throws as I am some of the reads and some of the decisions that he's making within these games. That is more concerning to me because I think he's going to hit open receivers more times than not. Like, I think he's going to make that throw to Pop Douglas 85-90% of the time. It just was one of those times where the ball got away from him a little bit. Maybe he wasn't 100% sure if he was going to sit or if he was going to keep running. I think there was that element too. Mike Vrabel was asked about Drake Maye the other day, and he did bring up being on the same page as receivers and miscommunications and things like that. So I do wonder if that is going on a little bit as everybody starts to pick up this Josh McDaniels offense, not just him, but the receivers also. So I think there's maybe an element to that. The one thing that I've seen on his film for the first both weeks is that he's having some issues with processing post-snap movement. So, like, when the defense shows you something pre-snap, and then NFL defense especially, they're going to disguise, and then they're going to rotate into something different post-snap. And how do you react to that pre-snap, post-snap movement? We talked a little bit about the strip sack last week, and I think it was the same sort of thing. They showed him single high, and then when they fell out of coverage there, when the ball was snapped, it ended up being a too high look.
Right.
And a lot of the time in Josh McDaniels' offense, you have coverage beaters to one side and coverage beater to the other side. So it's like when you drop back, if you have, let's say it's 2x2, right? You have two receivers to one on either side of you. You might have a two high beater to your left and you have a single high beater to your right. And based off the read that the quarterback gets, that's the way he's going to open to look to throw. So if you're expecting single high and then you open to the single high side and then it's actually too high, well, now you're holding the football because you're indecisive or you're not reading the right side of the field or whatever the case may be. So in the Minnesota game, I thought there were a couple of instances where Minnesota would show him one coverage pre-snap, then they would rotate into something or fall into something different post-snap, and it just caused Drake Maye to have some hesitancy. Like he just wasn't 100% sure at what he was looking at. To me, that's at least what it looked like. I'll give you an example. The throw to Mac Hollins that he actually did hit out of structure on the third down play. I know it's going around. Orlovsky tweeted about it. There's a big play to be had in the pocket there. He has two receivers, Pop Douglas and Kyle Williams, winning down the field for potential touchdowns if he just stays in the pocket and makes a throw from the pocket. So on that play, they start Pop Douglas in the slot, and Pop Douglas motions from the left side of the formation to the right side of the formation. When he motions, the nickel, the slot defender, follows him.
Man coverage,
right?
Yep.
So Drake Maye is saying, oh, this is single high with one safety up top. The indicator is telling me it's man-to-man. I have man-to-man coverage. So he starts looking at Pop Douglas, thinking I'm going to go to my man beater. I'm going to go to Pop, who usually wins in those situations on third down. When the ball was snapped, the nickel actually falls into the half field, and they end up playing cover 2 out of a single high look. Now, that's the league. Like that's how a lot of NFL defenses are doing it nowadays. Sunday. But when they spun it and the nickel dropped out and he played cover 2, Drake Maye held the ball. Because I don't think he was 100% decisive or sure of what exactly it was that he was looking at. So those types of things to me are a tiny bit more concerning than like, oh, he missed this throw. Because I expect him to correct the throw that he missed. Like, I don't think that's going to be a consistent thing where he's spraying the ball over Douglas's head when he's wide open. When teams see that on film, that maybe he has some problems with post-snap rotation, they're just going to keep testing him on post-snap rotation until he figures it out. That, to me, is something that could be more indicative of a bigger picture type thing. So that's a long-winded way of sort of breaking down what I saw on the film. But is there anything else you wanted to add about Drake before we move on? Because overall, like I said, like this is not alarmist. Like I said earlier, it's early. Like we're very early on in this process with Drake Maye, and we're especially very early on with Drake Maye in an offense and with a coaching staff that can rise to the level, right? Like Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels have the experience and the wherewithal to coach a player like Drake Maye and get the best out of him. So I want to give him grace. But if we have to look at the film objectively, those are just a couple of things that I saw.
Yeah, I mean, the sprays are the sprays. It goes back to my consistency point. They were an issue last year. They've been less of an issue overall this summer, maybe more in the last week or so than they were previously, but overall they've been less. That's one of the big consistency points for me. Can Drake Maye cut down on the sprays? Because if he can do that, there's going to be opportunities to be had. We've seen it with this offense. I think the wide receivers, collectively have put together a nice summer. Kayshon Boutte has exceeded expectations. Mac Hollins has exceeded expectations. Pop Douglas has had expectations, but I mean, he's been good, right? So I think overall, Javon Baker we'll see if he makes a team, but kind of coming out of nowhere. I think there's going to be opportunities for him. He's just got to be able to capitalize on those opportunities on a more regular basis than he did last year.
Yeah, no, it's a great point because I don't want to make too much out of the preseason game because they're going up against the twos. Now, I sometimes, like, when it comes to going up against starters and backups, let's be clear, the twos that Drake Maye were facing on Saturday are going to make the Vikings. They are just not their starting frontline players. It's not Byron Murphy. It's not Jonathan Grenard, like it's Dallas Turner. It's the next guys, right? It's their twos, not their practice squad guys. So
Right.
it wasn't like he was going up against total nobodies, but still, the fact that there were open receivers, I don't want to make a big deal out of necessarily for the preseason game, but in the joint practices, I felt the same way that there were open receivers. So that's positive that one, they might have upgraded enough at the skill positions to be competitive. I don't know if they've upgraded enough to be a contender, but they've upgraded enough to be competitive. And then also it's, a feather in Josh McDaniels' cap. He's getting guys open. He's scheming things. He's dressing things up. He is getting guys open, especially in those joint practices. So those are all positives. We want to do 3 up, 3 down from the preseason game as well. So let's get into that. Do you want to start us off? Because I have a feeling that ours is going to be pretty similar this week. I feel like there aren't too many to pick from, but who are your 3 up? Or start with your ups first.
First up, obviously, is Efton Chisholm. He was the best player in that game. He was unbelievable. I've said this for a while with Chisholm, like I don't want to say hold up, but my thing with Chisholm was usually the last thing you're looking for with the UDFA who's making a roster push is he working with the ones, and just to kind of get that what's the confirmation? Yeah. And that he obviously hasn't done that. He still hasn't done that. But at a certain point, it's like, all right, well, if he's just going to be against the twos, let's see what he looks like with the twos. And it's not like it's close, right? He looks like what you expect a starting caliber player to look like against twos. Case in point, look at Anthony Jennings, who we know is a starting caliber player who's further down on the depth chart for other reasons, and we'll get to. But, he was dominating. And the other thing is, the one thing we really hadn't seen from Chisholm, because you can't really see it in a practice setting, is the yards after catch stuff. Yeah. The ability to make tacklers miss, because obviously you're not tackling in practices. And he was tremendous in that regard, certainly. So, assuming that he's healthy and can start the season on the roster, which, as Mike Reese noted, he was riding the exercise bike pretty vigorously during practice the other day, which is a good sign. Like that, I'm sold. He's a roster lock. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he made the team on Saturday, and we played that clip to begin the show from last week's show. Yeah. And this is not patting myself on the back, but that was before the game. That was us talking about Efton Chisholm just based off of the practices.
So I will say, somebody in the YouTube comments and hearing that pointed out the island thing with cornerbacks is because it's a place of isolation from civilization. So to have it also be a place of community for fans is totally upside down.
No, it makes total sense.
No, it doesn't.
I'm not going to argue about this. He's Chisholm Island.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, but okay.
It's not.
I thought that comment made a great point.
I said it incorrectly there. It's not he's Chisholm Island. It's that it's Chisholm Island, as if like we were in isolation with thinking that Chisholm was good, but now it's hopping on the island.
Look,
right now everybody wants real estate on the island.
We touched the sun last year with the Manhattan Project as a nickname. I don't think we're going to get close to that, but I'd like to follow it up with something better than Chisholm Island.
No, it's not Chisholm Island.
But that's what it's going to become.
I was living on an island supporting Efton Chisholm, and now the island is expanding. Now everybody's on the island.
It's not an island anymore.
It is still an island. It's just a hopping island. It's Aruba.
You're missing this analogy is so broken.
No, it's perfect.
It's so broken.
No, now we've civilized this island now, and people are on the island, and we're packing it in. We're ready to go. So here's my take on Efton Chisholm, because I think you summed up the game stuff pretty good. I think the one thing that should be said about Efton Chisholm is that I don't think it's necessarily a total fluke that he's doing this. I think their only question that evaluators had about Efton Chisholm in the draft was the 4.740.
Straight line speed. Yep.
Straight line speed. The quickness, the play strength, the ability to catch the ball in traffic, even the ability to break tackles is there on the Eastern Washington tape. And he had all sorts of production in college. I don't think he broke Cooper Kupp's records, but he was like one of the only receivers, I think, to have 300 career catches besides Cooper Kupp at Eastern Washington.
He matched a lot of his numbers. Yeah.
So he was right there with a lot of Kupp stuff from Eastern Washington. And so this wasn't a fluke of this guy is, coming completely out of nowhere to make a roster push. This was a player that had draftable film in college that ran a bad 40 And because of thresholds and archaic thinking about the 40-yard dash, people just wiped him out from their draft boards. He just was undraftable for a lot of teams. So once he came in here and he started doing what he was doing, and I want to reiterate that he's doing this in practice as well as the games.
Yeah.
Once he started doing this, it wasn't like, oh, this is some fluky preseason Maurice Harris type of situation. It's like, oh, wait a second, like this kid's skills are translating to the NFL game from what they were in college. So Efton Chisholm had day 3 tape at Eastern Washington, and he went undrafted because of the 40 time. So in that respect, I think that it makes it almost even more real that maybe they might have found something here. It obviously helps that he's playing in an offense and in a role that's very hyper specific to his skill set. It's the slot or Z receiver role in Josh McDaniels' offense that is, the Edelman, Welker, Troy Brown, Deion Branch, if you want to go back that far. It's a highly productive role within this offense, which helps, and his skill set lends itself to that. But I think the main thing to take away from this Efton Chisholm thing is that if you just drafted him based off of tape, then you probably were talking about a guy that was like a mid to late day 3 pick. But because of the 40 time, he goes undrafted and he ends up here as a UDFA with the Patriots. So I think he made the team. The most important impressive thing I know to a lot of people is the broken tackles. I don't necessarily look at it the same way because the guys that are trying to tackle him aren't exactly frontline players. So I don't know if he's going to break 4 tackles like he did on his touchdown against a starting defense. But the ability to separate quickly, find space in zone coverage, attack the football in the air with strong hands and finish through contact at the catch point. Like all of those elements of Efton Chisholm's game belong. He has good instincts with the football in his hands, even though I don't know if the broken tackles are going to be as high of a volume. I think he has good instincts for where the open field is, where the green grass is, where people are coming from, trying to tackle him, which I think is an innate feel thing that comes instinctively, is not necessarily a natural trait. So all these things I think are really positive about Efton Chisholm. You mentioned that he hasn't done it against starters. I think that's a fair question, is whether or not he can do this against starting caliber players. But he proved it. Like he's on the team. I think he's done plenty to make a roster, especially one that doesn't exactly have a stacked receiver room. I think he's done more than enough. Who's your second up?
Real quick, couple more things on Efton Chisholm.
Yeah.
One, can you name the only 2 Eastern Washington players who have thrown a pass in the NFL?
Kendrick Bourne.
Yep.
I don't know the other one.
You should.
Oh.
You know him. Like you did. He's a very notable player.
Oh. I got Kendrick Bourne.
Cooper Kupp.
Oh. So he's throwing a trick pass as well.
Yeah. Eastern Washington has not put out their 2025 media guide yet, so I don't know if he broke Kupp's records. My other thing, also, let's not get ahead of ourselves with Cooper Kupp at the same time. Don't get me wrong. I'm very impressed.
You mean Efton Chisholm?
Efton Chisholm, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves with Cooper Kupp, too, I guess.
Let's not call him Cooper Kupp, is what you're saying.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves with Efton Chisholm. And what I mean by that is, he's had a great summer, and he's earned a roster spot. And for a UDFA, that in itself is a significant accomplishment. Let's not act like he's going to come in and be their wide receiver 1. No. Let's not act like he's kicking Pop Douglas off the field. 1, they can both be on the field at the same time. There's plenty of room for that in Josh McDaniels' offense. Yeah. 2, yes, it was back to your point earlier about Drake Maye. It wasn't the scrubs, but it also wasn't the starters. We've seen a limited sample size. What we've seen is impressive, and you only get a limited sample size to make the team. You're going to get more of a sample size to as the season goes on. How many passes did he even catch this year? Right? I feel like there's some people acting like he's going to be the go-to guy. Maybe eventually. Julian Edelman took 4 years. And that's not to say he's going to be Julian Edelman, but
he made the team.
He made the team.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I just want to be able to check that box and appreciate that for what it is, because it's an accomplishment.
Right.
Without going over our skis.
I'm not going over my skis, and we've talked about this off there. He made the team. That it stops, full stop. There's no projection of what he's going to be in terms of his rookie season, that he's going to be this number 1 receiver.
Right.
I'm not even sure he's going to be on the field. I don't even know if he's a game day active.
I mean, if they're going to keep 6 receivers, he probably is going to have to play special teams, but
right. The one thing that I would say with Chisholm, and I want to get back to another thing that you said in terms of if I, again, like it was just the 40 time. Like if this was a situation where this guy was a 5'0" 120 pound,
okay, Rudy,
right. Sure. Okay. Like if he was just not an NFL athlete, and I would sit here and say, okay, like maybe this is kind of just preseason training camp flukiness. But this guy was on people's radars. He went to the East-West Shrine Bowl and had a great week there at the Shrine Bowl. It was just a 40. So I'll reiterate that. The other thing that you mentioned that I wanted to hit on before we move on is how they can kind of play multiple slot types at the same time. And I actually yesterday, humble brag, I was talking to Julian Edelman yesterday. I'm going to do
just real quick. Yeah. Going into last year, and this is actually absurd.
Yeah.
In terms of if Efton Chisholm caught Cooper Kupp, in terms of receptions so I just have going into last year. I don't have last year. Efton Chisholm was at 226.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp has the record 428.
Yeah, crazy.
He had doubled yards. Efton Chisholm had 2,500 going into last year. Cooper Kupp had career 6,400.
Yeah.
I don't think that Efton Chisholm had 4,000 receiving yards last year.
I believe he eclipsed a certain threshold that only Cooper Kupp at Easter. I think it was like 300 career catches.
300 catches, yeah.
So just to finish the take, I was talking to Edelman yesterday, and I'm going to publish a piece probably next week about all this, just about the slot receiver in McDaniels' offense and how you play that role and his thoughts on Pop and Efton Chisholm a little bit as well. And we were talking about him, Edelman, and Danny Amendola, and what made those two guys truly different. And Edelman was saying that Danny Amendola was a pure slot. He called him an F.
Yeah.
They call it an F receiver in the offense. He was a pure slot receiver. And Edelman was really a Z who in 3 receiver packages would occasionally go play the F and be the primary slot, but in 2 receiver base packages he would be the Z. He would be an outside receiver. So Chisholm to me is an F. Like he's a pure Danny Amendola slot, and that's the comparison that Josh McDaniels has brought up. Pop, on the other hand, might be able to be more of like a Z or a joker or a flanker, a guy that moves around the formation and plays off the line of scrimmage. So to your point, like you can play in 3 receiver sets. You can play a pure slot like Efton Chisholm, and you can play a Z like Pop Douglas.
Again, Edelman and Amendola.
And have both of them together. So in this case, even though it's not a perfect, because Pop and Edelman are very different players.
What about Pop and Hogan?
Maybe a little bit better, but Hogan was big.
So but the skill set's more similar because it's more based on straight line speed
and like downfield ability. Yeah. So, that was what Edelman was saying, was that the two of them would play together in 3 receiver packages, but Amendola really wouldn't play in 2 receiver base offense,
right?
Because he wasn't like that kind of
guy. You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Like to make for Chisholm to make an impact, or Pop. Honestly, I think even before Chisholm carves out his role, when they go to 12 or 21, it's Diggs in either Kayshon Boutte, Kyle Williams, or Mac Hollins. Like, that's what it's been all summer. Pop has been the guy that's come off the field when they bring on a second running back or second tight end.
Yeah. So here's an email from Tom. Again, I want to read this email because it's funny.
Okay.
Alex is 100% right, and Chisholm Island does not make sense. Island are reserved only for elite corners. You leave them in isolation and QBs are afraid to go there. Everyone thinks of Revis Island when you hear Island.
Exactly.
It just does not work for receivers. This is too much of a defense connotation. You can say Chisholm Train or Chisholm Express. You get it before there's too much momentum. Maybe Chef Chisholm. Sorry, I can't read today. Chef Chisholm. Chisholm Bandwagon.
Sure.
The Church of Chisholm. I don't like that. Not on this show.
That's fine.
But with Father Fred, Fred Kirsch, Father Fred. But Chisholm Island is straight disrespectful to Revis and Island nicknames reserved for elite cornerback play.
I will say, somebody in the YouTube comments brought up you could talk about a tackle having an island.
So
I'll give you that.
I want to be clear. This was not Chisholm Island.
But the fact
I was on Chisholm Island.
The fact that so many people hear it the other way proves it doesn't work.
I am not saying that his nickname is Chisholm Island. I am saying that there was an island of Efton Chisholm OG fans, and we were all on the island, and now we are welcoming. I'm not a gatekeeper here, Alex. I welcome everybody. Everybody come on the ferry. You can come out to the island. It's all right. You can enjoy the beaches. You can enjoy the views. I'm not trying to tell you that you can't join the island. I'm not saying it's Chisholm Island. I'm saying that I was on the island, on the bandwagon, if you will, of Efton Chisholm, and now we're good.
All right.
Let's move on. Who's your second up?
Second up for me was Anthony Jennings.
Yep, the same one.
There's some reporting out there today from Andrew Callahan that the Patriots are, open to business for trading him. And look, I ultimately get it. If you can get something good for him, if you don't think he's going to play, fine. I like to see them find a role for him. He's talented. I don't know that this team is in a spot where they can walk away from just talent. I don't know what that role would be. Maybe he's not going to handle a backup role well, but like as Harold Landry's in the Harold Landry spot, as the second guy in that spot, I think Anthony Jennings would be really good to have. I do. Came out with 3 sacks, and he's against backups. The pass rush isn't always going to look like that for him, but again, that's what a starter against backups looks like.
Right.
So he can be competitive against the starters. I ultimately think he ends up. I had him on my last roster projection. The more I think about it, I also kept 7 edge guys, which is probably unrealistic. But I'd like to think he belongs on the team. He might ultimately not make it, but he's making it tough on him with performances like that.
Yeah, I agree with your point about. I was looking a little bit at just trying to put together a roster projection just for myself on Pat's Picker, which is a great little thing by PatsFans.com, I think it is. Ian Logue's site. They do a great job with Pat's Picker, and it just does it for you, right?
Oh, look at this.
It lists all the players, and it counts it for you, and it makes it nice and clean. And I was trying to, I was doing it myself, and guys like Anthony Jennings, I was like, who are we keeping over Anthony Jennings that I'm like banging the table for? That I'm like, I need to get this guy on, and we need to part ways with Anthony Jennings to get this guy on. I felt the same way about Javon Baker. I felt the same way about Kyle Duggar, where I was just like, okay, if you can find somebody to trade Kyle Duggar for and you like the compensation and so on and so forth, I can see the reasoning for it. But this team is not in a position yet where they have 53 locks on this roster, right? Like, it's not like we're sitting here saying, man, like they're going to have to make some tough cuts. Like, no disrespect, but we're just not there yet. So Anthony Jennings fits a similar mold. Okay, so maybe Landry, Chazon, and Keon White are going to play over him if healthy.
Yeah.
What happens if one of them isn't healthy?
Right.
And do you want to maintain that depth? And do you want to have an NFL player that you can fill in for that? And if you're cutting, a UDFA or one of these rookie draft picks that you drafted at the late day 3 to keep an Anthony Jennings, I'd rather keep Anthony Jennings. Like, I just don't think that there's enough people pushing him off the roster.
I'm with you.
And
now, if somebody comes along and gives you like a 3rd round pick, fine.
Right.
But I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. So I had the same way. I had Chisholm, Jennings. Who was your last guy?
Travion Henderson. And it's limited, but he's just so good. Yeah. He's just so good. And you saw the contact balance and the power after seeing the speed last week. Put him on bubble wrap. I'm good. I'll see against Vegas. Travion, like, done more than enough at this point. I still don't think he's ever going to be that, like, bell cow back, because I don't think Josh McDaniels is going to do it that way. And if I'm the Patriots, like, take a lesson. Ohio State goes out, gets Quinshon Judkins in the portal, limits Henderson's touches, and he actually becomes more productive because of that. I got to pull up the stat. I believe he had the same number of scrimmage yards per game on despite playing less games or something.
I think didn't he have more yards from scrimmage than the year before?
He had 200 more yards per 150 more yards per scrimmage on 4 less touches.
Yeah.
So, like, if I'm the Patriots, take the lesson from that. I get maybe some people are uneasy with Ramondre Stevenson because he's struggled at times this summer. He's banged up now. I keep him for now. I don't think you're going to find a better early down bowling ball back than him at this point in the offseason. And if you want to address that down the road, maybe you do. But, like, it's got to be 1A and 1B. Yeah. I don't think that Travion Henderson's a guy you want touching the ball, close to 300 times in a season.
He feels like 10 to 12 touch guy a game where you are finding ways to get him the football in space as much as you can while also recognizing that you don't want to run him into the ground. So 10 touches, 12 touches are right around 200 on the season, and that includes receptions, which I don't think is exactly the same as like running in between the tackles in terms of wear and tear. I think that's feasible for TreVeyon Henderson. I almost put TreVeyon Henderson, but I have a feeling that he might get retired from the ups list at some point this season.
Can we do that to a rookie?
I didn't want to overuse him.
We've only ever done that with Barmore.
I knew we were probably going to get to him. The one other up that I wrote down was Ben Brown, who I thought was really good in this game. I thought he moved the line of scrimmage really well with Will Campbell on that left side. They picked up some post-snap movement pretty well in this game. He continues to be clean in pass protection. He was pretty good in pass protection last year, too. And that continues to be a strength of his. I'm starting to get to the point. I was a Bradbury guy. I've been a Bradbury guy. But I do start to wonder a little bit here, and I wanted to kind of dovetail this into a conversation about what's going on the interior offensive line. Is their best line going to be some sort of combination of Campbell, Wilson, Brown, Onwenu, Moses, and no Garrett Bradbury?
Might be.
Because I think if you're just basing it strictly off of who's played the best and not necessarily Garrett Bradbury is a veteran, he's a guy you signed as a free agent and all the different baggage that comes with it, I think that you could objectively say that Jared Wilson and Ben Brown have outplayed Garrett Bradbury. I just don't know if they're ready to pull the plug on the veteran center, young quarterback battery, like that whole thing.
I think that is part of it. For me, Ben Brown and Drake Maye have worked together before. So I know Ben Brown's young, but you have that unless they're worried about how Brown's picked up the offense. The fact Brown's gotten it makes sense, but Brown and Wilson are both working so much at left guard.
Right.
At a certain point, if one of them is going to be the center, he's got to start playing center. That's not really a switch you want to make Saturday night before the first game of the year. So,
yeah,
I'm with you, and maybe it ultimately becomes that once we get a few weeks into the season. Like, we did this last year. We all kind of knew Chooks wasn't going to work at left tackle, and it worked itself out eventually. I'd rather Drake Maye not have to go through that, but in the offense as a whole, I should say. But I think that is their best group. I still think Jared Wilson's a starting caliber NFL center. The only problem is he had a couple bad snaps early in the summer, and then he really hasn't played center since outside of those few snaps in the game. So where are they at with him actually snapping? And does he need to work through that? Are they good with him as a center? Did that worry them to the point where he's a guard? Okay, if that's true, fine, play him at guard because I still think he can hold up there. But now you got to get Ben Brown working at center to work with Drake Maye. If it's just the two of them rotating at guard, that's an outright position battle. And, I mean, it looks right now like Garrett Bradbury's the starting center. As much as he struggled, it doesn't look like he's budging.
It seemed to settle down for him a little bit after the Commanders preseason game. He had a decent game. One of the preseason.
The chat wants to know if you're on Ben Brown Island.
No, that doesn't rise to island level. But
because it doesn't make sense.
The first preseason game against the Commanders, I thought Garrett Bradbury played pretty well in, and then he was kind of the entrenched center from that point on. All of last week in the joint practices, and then in the preseason game on Saturday, and then we came out of the preseason game on Saturday, and all of a sudden there's a mix going on in there between Wilson, Brown, Bradbury. I want to be clear, Bradbury is only playing center.
Yeah.
But Brown is playing some center. He's playing some left guard. Wilson obviously played both positions in the game as well. So Bradbury's only playing center, but he's in a mix of three guys that are rotating in from a bigger picture, sort of cycle. So the one thing that Bradbury has going for him is not how he plays after the snap. It's before the snap. He's a veteran center. You have a second-year quarterback. He's a guy that can help Drake Maye with protections and mic calls and sniffing out blitzes and seeing things and all that kind of stuff. There is something to be said for that. There's a lot of value in having an experienced center working with a young quarterback. But is that enough? Is that enough for Garrett Bradbury to hold off guys that are better than him currently? I would say. We'll find out.
Clearly has been so far, but that can change this is where this is not a Patriots thing, like league-wide. There's so few opportunities to actually evaluate these offensive linemen with the restrictions on padded practices and things like that. In the summer, when a lot of it is mental, it can be enough to hold them off.
Right.
When it gets live, when the lights come on, that can change real quick.
Right. But I guess my point is, and this is sort of a take, like, I guess, if you kind of know that this is going the other way with Garrett Bradbury,
yeah,
like, do you carry Garrett Bradbury on the roster knowing that he has a very, very short leash, and then he's probably, like, he might spend the majority of the season on the bench?
To your point, they might have that roster spot just by the rest of the roster. I have them keeping 10 offensive linemen on my last roster projection, which is a lot. But I kind of noted in there, it might be like last year. It's at different positions, but it might be like last year where some of these battles continue into the regular season. The other question I have about Bradbury, and this is just because a lot of guys have taken this approach in recent years, like he seems like somebody who's bought into the program and is in on Mike Vrabel, is in on Josh McDaniels, and likes working with the younger guys and all of that. Like, from talking to him, that's what he seems to be. But all these guys are competitors. Is he somebody who, you know, who's a first-round pick? He's a 7-year starter. Does he look at it, if they do make the switch, and say, and basically request his release?
Right.
And say, I want to go somewhere where I'm going to have a chance to start and play.
I just wonder if you do that now instead of a month from now, out of fairness to him, right? Because I think Jared Wilson's the center of the future.
Yeah.
And he played 13 snaps at center in the game. I thought it went pretty well. And, you know, you were talking about, well, those guys haven't worked as much at center. I do wonder if, like, Wilson and I hear you in terms of working it with Drake Maye specifically. Yeah. But if Brown and Wilson are natural centers.
Yeah.
So they're learning guard as players that really are position 1 is center and position 2 is guard. So, like, for them, maybe center is more like riding a bike and guard is really the one that needs to have reps. So if you move Ben Brown back to center, who was Drake Maye's center for most of the year last year, I don't really know if that's necessarily a huge transition. So, like, I just look at it that way, and I do wonder with roster cuts coming up, and this is totally take speculation. Yeah. Like, is there a world where they just look at it and say, well, Brown beat out Bradbury?
Well, I mean, Bradbury could still stay as the backup center.
He could.
Right. Then it becomes Bradbury versus Cole Strange.
Right.
Which
I think Bradbury is going to.
I think Bradbury gets it too in that scenario.
Right.
But unless he doesn't want to be here as a backup, that would be, and that, just to finish conversation, that would be Cole Strange's path to the roster. I think that's Cole Strange's basically only path to the roster at this point.
Let's go to the downs. Be a little bit quicker on the downs.
Yeah.
My first down, just get it out of the way, was Drake. Like, even though I said all those things defending him at the beginning, it still wasn't good enough, and he's still got to be better than that. I don't think we need to belabor the point. But I had Drake.
I have one more sneaky up, by the way.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Jordan Polk.
Yeah, sneaky.
Jordan Polk has made a little bit of a roster push here down the stretch, and he might be somebody that starts on the practice squad and comes into the picture later. They are going to love the way he chased down the returner on that kickoff.
Vrabel brought it up.
He had the interception last week. He had a run stop this week. Who's the sixth corner right now? If they're going to keep 6, which they might because of injuries.
So Gonzalez,
Davis, Jones, Austin, DJ James.
And so you have DJ James on. Like,
he's clearly the 5th corner just based on the way they're operating.
Right. But you said 6.
So that's what I'm saying. If they keep 6 because of injuries.
But we're stretching it to get to 6 is my point. If DJ James is already your 5th guy.
But Christian Gonzalez has been banged up.
Yes.
Carlton Davis has this injury history. Marcus Jones has this injury history. If you're going to be short at safety too, that might be a spot where you want to carry a little extra depth. Who's 6th corner right now?
Probably Miles Battle, based off of what they've done.
All right.
But maybe if you consider Jordan Polk a corner.
So he can play a little bit of both.
I think he's really a nickel, right? He's a slot.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they might need a slot.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, that was just a take I had.
All right. So I had Drake Maye on the downs.
You had Drake Maye as a down. Back to it. Sorry. Yeah. I forgot. I went to the bottom of my notebook to make sure I didn't miss anything. I forgot I had that down there.
Did you have it? Who was your down?
First down, Kyle Duggar.
Okay. I had him on here too.
He had an okay game to begin with. And it ultimately wasn't called a fumble, but that play at the end, Mike Vrabel kind of talked about it the other day. That's everything this coaching staff has preached removing from the program since day one.
It's a good point.
And I just don't, I get ultimately it didn't impact the result and it wasn't called a fumble, but the preseason is more about looking about the process than the result. If it was the regular season that happened, we probably laugh about it and move on. The preseason, something like the fact he was on the field to begin with on the final play is not a good sign.
That was like 90% of the reason why I had him on here is because he's playing.
Well, I literally had the thought, I'm like, if Kyle Duggar gets a pick on the last play of the game, that's going to be an interesting little event to have fun with and talk about. But the fumble is not what you're looking for in that situation.
So I will give this to Kyle Duggar. I had him on here because of the same exact reasons. He was playing in the game that late, and because of the near fumble at the end. I actually, watching his tape, there are obvious, he has some stiffness to his game and coverage that we've known has existed this whole time. Yeah. Right? It's not new. When he plays deep safety, I do think that he's somebody who's limited range-wise and doesn't necessarily have that peripheral vision to see the entire field and really process what's coming into his zones and things like that. So I think there's some elements of that too when he plays, away from the football, in the deep part of the field. But with Duggar, I just, the thing that I keep coming back to with him is you kind of summed it up perfectly. That type of stuff is the exact type of the S that gets you beat that Mike Vrabel is trying to eliminate from the program.
Right.
And that's the type of thing that the buttoned up type of stuff that they are trying to eliminate from this football program completely so that they can get back to a level of that they want to be at. And with Duggar, that's kind of a perfect example of a one-play example of that happening. And so it's a good point. I had him on there for that reason as well, and because he was playing late in the game. Now, the one thing I want to bring up with Kyle Duggar and the defense of Kyle Duggar, our first year, my first full year, 2018.
Yeah.
I was at the Patriots' final preseason game against the New York Giants in the Meadowlands.
Okay.
Because I remember I was still living in New
York because you weren't at training camp.
And I decided to go to the game. And they got me a credential. Thank you, Xanis, for getting me the credential. And I went to the game. Jason McCourty played the entire game. He was just like Kyle Duggar. He was in the game for the last snap of the game. And I remember going into the road team locker room in the Meadowlands, which by the way has 2 road team locker rooms. There's one for the Jets and one for the Giants.
Yeah, I don't understand why they did that.
Which is very confusing.
Well, I understand. Oh, it's because that way when they have neutral site games, they have 2 locker rooms.
Okay, maybe.
Right, so when you have Army-Navy, there's one for Army, one for Navy.
Right.
They don't have to use the when they came here for Army-Navy, Navy used the Patriots locker room, which is a nice gesture by the Patriots.
Yes.
Obviously, but it's also a whole other thing you have to do.
Right. So I remember going into the road team locker room that night.
One other thing, I think I remember reading this. When the Jets play the Giants, when they play each other, I think the road team has to use one of those road team locker rooms. I don't think they're allowed to use their own locker room.
Oh, because it's they have to be at a disadvantage of being in the road team.
I think I remember.
Everything has to be equal.
Yeah, I'm going to look that up. I think I remember seeing that.
That's crazy because your locker is literally right down the hall and you can't use it. Anyways, so Jason McCourty stood at his locker, whatever. And I remember being in the scrum, talking to Jason McCourty and him not knowing if he made the team or not. He was 100% on the bubble, 100% on the bubble, played into the fourth quarter of the last preseason game. And this was when there were 4 preseason games. So I think that meant even more at the time that he was playing. And later that year, he ends up breaking up the pass in the Super Bowl that won them the game. and the rest is history. So as much as I want to sit here and say that Kyle Duggar looks like he's on the outside looking in, it kind of looked like Jason McCourty was on the outside looking in too. Now, maybe his brother being a team captain and one of the better Patriots of that generation, that might have played a role in the fact that he ended up making the team. But Jason McCourty ended up making the team. He ended up having a great season with the Patriots. He ended up making the play of the season in the Super Bowl for the Patriots. So my point is that maybe there's a sliver, tiny little bit of hope that this could turn back around for Kyle Duggar at some point. So I just want to throw that story out there because I think it's I always think of that when we talk about this kind of stuff with Jason McCourty. All right, last one here for me.
Real quick, the Jets can use their own locker room or the Giants when they're the road team, but they have to walk in a different way. And it's resulted in players sometimes walking into the other team's locker room.
That's crazy. So I had Maye, I had Duggar. My last down here was Javon Baker, who Mike Reese just tweeted a couple minutes ago that Javon Baker is traveling to New York for the preseason finale, so he hasn't been practicing the last couple of days, but maybe he's still going to play in the game. I know that there was some bad luck for Javon Baker in terms of the balls he was getting from Josh Dobbs. It wasn't...
I'll get to that when I do my downs.
Yeah, it wasn't perfect from Josh Dobbs by any means in terms of throwing to Javon Baker. That definitely contributed to the 1 for 7 that Javon Baker had. 1 catch, 7 targets in the box score. But I just thought with Javon Baker, it still just isn't fully clicking for Javon Baker. The consistency that you were talking about for Drake Maye is really there with Javon Baker too. He has moments, but the route running, I thought there's a couple of routes that I thought were iffy in the game. Just not great job pushing vertical and getting the corner out into space and then kind of breaking down and creating separation at the top of the route. Even the throw that Woolridge completed to him, I thought he was blanketed. The ball just kind of squeaked through the corner who had his back to the quarterback and didn't know the ball was coming. The throw at the back of the end zone, I kind of thought Javon Baker stopped down on his route. Like if he had kept running the back of the end zone there, I think that's a more catchable target. So there's just some little like route running things with him that I still think pop up every single time he gets a lot of snaps or reps in a practice or a game. That's just, you're just missing that last piece for Javon Baker. So I had Javon Baker on the downs. Oh, in the false start. The false start was, he knew it in the moment. Like I'm on the bubble. I'm competing for the roster. I can't be making mental errors like that. So Maye, Javon Baker, Kyle Duggar. Who was your last one?
I only gave one.
Oh, who were your last two?
Josh Dobbs was one. Just
I had already said my piece about Josh Dobbs on our post game show, and I kind of went after him a little bit.
So I'll just say, like, when you're the backup quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, the backup quarterback's not going to get perfect.
one
Now he's
job
going to
to
miss
do.
some throws.
Yeah,
You just can't get people hurt.
Yeah.
You just can't be leading guys out in traffic. And that's, like, even the throw to Kyle Williams, I don't hate the concept behind it. Like, yeah, he's going to take a hit there, but that's big boy football. Sometimes you're going to go over the middle in the NFL and you're going to take a hit. But all the more reason that throw needs to be at the numbers or lower so he can catch it and get down and protect himself.
Or even like a little behind him.
Or behind him or somewhere. When you put that ball out in front and up over his head, he's now fully exposing himself. I don't remember if it was a linebacker or safety, whoever's lurking there in the middle, and that's how that happens. So I'm not expecting Josh Dobbs to be perfect. He's obviously, I think, been a little less than expected throughout the summer, but that's one where, like, you just... I remember a couple years ago when Trace McSorley was here, and he was the 3rd or 4th string quarterback, and I made a deal about it, and people were like, "Right, he's not going to make the team. Why are you talking about it?" There were like 3 or 4 guys who got hurt because he was just leading them into places that he shouldn't have been leading them. And then most of them were guys that weren't going to make the roster, but it was the year after he was drafted, he got Tyquan Thornton hurt. Yeah. Which, in retrospect,
maybe everybody got Tyquan. Yeah.
Like that's the one thing as a backup quarterback. You can't be putting your guys in harm's way. So he's a down. And then Demontre Jacobs was a down for me.
Yeah.
Started camp looking like he was going to be in the mix to be the 3rd tackle. Then it was, Marcus Bryant took priority over him, but he was still clearly getting reps with the 2nd unit. Now Jacobs has fallen behind Darian Lowe, who also did not have a very good game. But at least he's still in the picture. I think, and let me be clear, because I wasn't clear enough about this for Felger. I do think there's a chance they find a tackle on waivers who ends up being their 4th tackle. No, that's not an ideal situation. It's better if he's a better player than who you have. I think you do it, obviously, but Jacobs, it does not look like is going to make the team. I think Lowe's ahead of him right now, but I do think there's room for them to find somebody better. Marcus Bryant's been solid, and if he's your 3rd tackle, okay, but he's really young. He's a rookie. He's a little more raw. I'd like for them, I like him more as a developmental player. Let's say something happens where Morgan Moses or Will Campbell is going to miss multiple weeks. Maybe you give Marcus Bryant a shot, but I'd like to have a little more proven commodity with a slightly higher floor than what they have in Darian Lowe right now. And maybe they can't find that guy. I don't know that they ultimately can, but I would take a look.
This was how I put this politely. This was a rough film for Demontre Jacobs. That was bad. It was bad.
Just on the usage. I was thinking just on the usage.
The film was last year he was better than that. He wasn't good last year either, don't get me wrong, but he was better than that. It was a tough watch for him in run and pass blocking. It was a tough watch. Yeah, your Josh Dobbs point is a good one. Like I said, I kind of said my piece, the exact same take on post game with him. It was really just disappointing from all angles that Kyle Williams getting open in the game again. He actually, the ball kind of found him a few times this time. He had 3 catches on 3 targets to start the game.
He did hang on to the one where he got lit up.
Yeah,
and
I thought
him for that. I obviously wish he didn't get hurt.
I thought he got open a couple times with Drake in the game too. I mentioned the one earlier, and so I felt like a big game was coming for Kyle Williams, where he was kind of gonna get some momentum and get some confidence going, and then low hole defender drops out, sits right there over the middle of the field. Josh Dobbs leads him right into the robber help, and boom, out for the game, out for all week this week. Who knows if he's going to play tomorrow night or not, but probably not. Like, not great, right?
Right.
You finally had a shiny new toy, and then the shiny new toy broke, right? And that's never great. So that's 3 up, 3 down. We're going to open the show up now to your calls and to your emails. But before we do, based right here in New England, Brunt Workwear makes work boots and apparel that are built for the job site. Their gear is comfortable, durable, and named after the real workers in the trades that help design it. You can even try Brunt out on the job, and if it doesn't blow you away, they let you send it back. Save $10 on your first order at bruntworkwear.com/Pats or with coupon code PATS. And hopefully we see a lot of these this season, Alex. That's touchdowns. Bob's Discount Furniture just opened its 200th store, and you can join in on the celebration. Hustle to your nearest Bob's to shop the latest styles with top-notch features at everyday low prices, like relaxing recliners, game day ready media centers, dining sets, made for halftime snacking, and the Bobopedic mattresses designed for resting up before first kickoff. Plus, you can enjoy free treats, limited edition stickers, and more surprises on Labor Day weekend. So stop in and take a victory lap at Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. All right, you guys have been waiting on hold. We appreciate it. We're going to get to your calls now. Nate is in Connecticut. What's up, Nate?
Hey, guys. Can you guys hear me well?
Yeah, we got you.
All right, sweet. So my question for you guys, so recently Elliot Wolf came out and said that they'd absolutely do anything to help the team, including some high-round draft picks in the trade talks for any player that would help the team. What player do you guys think was he talking about? I know there's probably a mix of players that could really help the team, but what position do you think we would really need the most help at? Is that edge with Micah Parsons or, another like a Trey Hendrickson? Who do you guys think it'd be?
Okay, yeah, thanks for the call, Nate. So obviously, I mean, we can just do this now because we were going to get to it at some point. Guys like Hendrickson, guys like Terry McLaurin, guys like Micah Parsons, everybody would take those guys on your team.
Yeah, if you go back and listen to how the question was asked, and no offense to Phil Perry, who asked it, I just, to parse the words, he basically said, would you trade a first-round pick if you felt it'd make the team better? And Elliot Wolf said, yeah. Which, yeah, if it's going to make the team better, you trade the first. There's so much context missing from that conversation. Does trading a first-round pick for Terry McLaurin, do they feel that would make the team better? Like, in the short term, obviously it would. Do they feel like ultimately they'd be in a better position as an organization? Some people would probably argue no. Would you trade a first for Micah Parsons? Absolutely, hell yeah.
Right.
It's going to cost a lot more than just one first to trade for Micah Parsons. So, I don't know how much weight you put into that answer.
Yeah, and I guess, like, let's just unpack, because if people, I'm sure this is going to be a lot of the questions today. What would you trade? I want to take Micah out of it, because I would
not trade what it would cost to get Micah Parsons. Let's put it that way.
I don't think that Micah Parsons is getting traded because of that. I
think he has to. I mean, him and Jerry Jones have been hurling insults at each other.
I think they're headed for a divorce. I don't think it's today. Like, I don't think this is happening at this time period of roster.
You think he's just going to sit out games?
I don't know, but
he doesn't seem like that kind of guy.
I don't think it's happening now. Maybe in the offseason, maybe when his contract is really at the end.
Have I told you my tinfoil hat idea?
Sure. I don't think so.
So I scratch your back, you scratch mine?
Yeah.
Micah Parsons for Trey Hendrickson in a first. The Bengals' issue with Hendrickson is his age. The Cowboys' issue with Micah Parsons is him and the owner hate each other.
Yeah.
Now, maybe Trey Hendrickson hates Jerry Jones too. I don't know. It's a possibility. But doesn't that kind of solve everybody's problems?
Yeah, that's not a bad trade idea. So now let's talk about Trey Hendrickson. So I'm taking Micah Parsons off the table because I think if you're going to trade for Micah Parsons, it's not totally realistic.
Let's just to actually play it out for the people who wonder.
I think it would take like what Khalil Mack got traded for a couple years ago.
3 first-round picks.
Yeah, 2 first-round picks plus.
So here's the thing. He's going to be worth more than Khalil Mack because he's older, he's younger, and he's had more production.
A little bit younger. I mean, Khalil Mack was a great player.
Parsons better, and the positional versatility.
He's better, but we're not like Khalil Mack.
I think it's 3 firsts. Even if it's 2, like the Patriots have multiple needs they need to address before they're a contender.
Yeah,
Micah Parsons alone doesn't make him a contender. Case in point, on a better roster in Dallas, how much playoff success has Micah Parsons brought them?
Yeah, but that's not totally fair. Like there's 21.
Who is better roster, the Patriots or Cowboys?
Probably the Cowboys, but like it's not just Micah Parsons' problem that they can't win in the playoffs.
Right.
Like
because the talent around him is not enough. But if the talent around him is not enough there, what's the situation here? And the way to add that talent is going to be through the draft, and now you're giving up those picks.
Okay.
So trust me, I feel kind of gross saying no to Micah Parsons, but the Patriots are just not in that spot. I think it's a contender that feels they're a step away. It's Kansas City. It's the usual suspects. It's Kansas City. It's Buffalo. They're not going to trade him to the Eagles. They're not going to trade him in the division. Do the Bengals get creative and put Trey Hendrickson on the table? Those are the teams you're talking about.
I don't think Micah Parsons getting traded is on the table because I think the asking price.
But I'm saying if he does,
crazy.
The Patriots are not the kind of team that's trading for him.
I don't think any team's trading for him. Honestly.
Trey Hendrickson at first.
Let's talk a little bit about Trey Hendrickson because this one I do feel like is a little bit more real. And not just in terms of the Patriots' interest, but just in terms of him getting dealt. Because a big reason in my mind why a guy like Micah Parsons isn't getting traded is because the absolute boat that you were going to have to give the Cowboys to get him out of Dallas is insane. Like the trade package you're going to have to put together to get Micah Parsons out of Dallas is going to be incredibly astronomically high asking price. I don't think that that's necessarily the case for Trey Hendrickson. This is a guy that's disgruntled with the contract. He's 30. He's a pass rusher that's on the wrong side of the 30 years old threshold. So you're looking at Trey Hendrickson as like a 2 to 3 year player in that sort of window. So I don't think that you're going to have to give up 2 first-round picks and maybe even more for a guy like Trey Hendrickson. If I was the Patriots, and I'm not saying that this would get it done.
Yeah.
If I was the Patriots, I might think about offering a 2nd-round pick in Keon White for Trey Hendrickson. I think that that's probably where I would go. Like here's, Keon White, still a young, potentially ascending player that plays the same position. It's swapping, in, one out. Maybe if you're the Bengals, you ask for a player in the secondary too because their secondary is not good.
Kyle Duggar, take him.
Kyle Duggar. I've heard Marcus Jones' name thrown out there. Just because, Alex Austin's ascension.
I'd rather trade Kyle Duggar.
I think everybody would rather trade Kyle Duggar. But something like that for Trey Hendrickson, if the Patriots are as interested as some of the reporting that's out there, I don't think that that's totally like the Bengals are so clicking and hanging up the phone on that offer.
The thing you have there that's nice is, remember how for years and years the Patriots just churned out corners, like UDFAs, late-round picks, because that was the coaching staff's specialty. Mike Pellegrino, obviously tremendously talented cornerbacks coach. Isn't that supposed to be what this team is in the front 7? What this coaching staff is? So I trust them, to find a pass rusher in the 4th, 5th round. Maybe it's Braden Swinson. Maybe it's Elijah Ponder, right? So I do still think they'll have that younger guy in the pipeline. I would probably do that. The problem is, so I had Trags on the radio on Saturday to talk about this. Trags made it sound like the Bengals want a 1st plus. Trags made it sound like the Bengals listening, and I don't want to put words in his mouth. I just texted him to kind of make sure. But the gist of what he said was basically the Bengals taking calls on Trey Hendrickson doesn't necessarily mean the Bengals are about to trade Trey Hendrickson. The Bengals taking calls on Trey Hendrickson is more about, well, while this nonsense is going on, let's see if somebody will get stupid. Let's see if somebody will give us a 1st and something. Right?
No one's giving them that.
And if nobody gives them that, Trags seem to think Hendrickson will ultimately cave and play on the contract.
I think that might be the most realistic thing.
So
the reason why I said I think Trey Hendrickson, Micah Parsons, and Terry McLaurin to me are pie in the sky. I think those are dreams, pipe dreams.
So, I'm leaving that door open for McLaurin a little bit, little bit,
pipe dream,
a little bit. Yeah, that organization, man.
Dude, it's a different ownership.
I know,
you keep saying
but
the
it's
same thing. They have a different
still
owner.
them. It's still
they have a different. They have everything's different. They have a different owner. They have a different general manager.
How many
and a different head coach.
owners have like?
Not many.
I don't know.
Dan Snyder owned the team for like our whole life.
Not them, but like there's other organizations. That's just who they are.
It's
in
different.
all of sports. In
It's
all of
different.
sports, that happens.
No, it's different. With Trey Hendrickson, though, I think that there is some real smoke to him potentially getting traded. And I'm not saying that it gets the deal done. That's just, if I'm the Patriots, you make that offer, right? Like you put it on the table and a deal for Trey Hendrickson. Like I said, and to me, it would be Hendrickson for Keon White, second round pick. And then maybe if they want one of your defensive backs, you can throw one of the defensive backs in there too.
Do you
and
think,
not like Christian Gonzalez, but like,
do you think that's a wow offer?
No, I think that's a fair offer.
Okay, that's the thing. I think with the Bengals, it's not here's all the offers, let's pick the best one. I think it's if somebody wows us, we'll trade them.
Fair enough.
If not, we won't.
But I'm just not going any further.
I'm not either.
That's it.
What about this one? And I don't know whether or not the Bengals would do this. I don't know if it technically is more. And by the way, I texted Trags. He said the Bengals might be looking for a first and second.
That's
or
not
first
happening.
and third.
They
I
can
think that's
dream.
kind of the point.
No.
What if the Bengals look at it and say, okay, Trey Hendrickson in our first for your first? Essentially one of those NBA like pick swap trades.
Oh, I don't think they would do that. The Bengals.
Depends what they think of Drake May.
I think the Bengals are going to want to win that trade by a landslide. I don't think they're going to do something like that. That'd be my offer.
Look, Trags is there. Trags knows. Trags did not think he was going to be traded.
I'm not saying that I disagree with Trags. I'm just saying, or challenge, the great Trags.
Yeah.
I'm not challenging his information. I'm just saying, if I was the Patriots, if I was Elliott Wolf, I would pick up the phone and I would say to the Bengals, "This is our offer," and I would offer our second round pick in 2026, Keon White, and they can pick from a pile of our corners or defensive backs that we don't really want.
I don't think that gets it done.
I don't think it gets it done either. But that's just the offer I'm making.
Oh, then he's not coming here.
Okay, so
because the other thing, I'm not putting it past some team that's again on the line. The Eagles have $30 million in cap space.
Yeah, because Howie Roseman's a genius.
Right. What's stopping Howie from calling the Eagles being like, "Here's our first"?
Nothing.
Like that makes sense to me.
Nothing.
I could see that. It would be unfair.
So can we talk about a little bit more of a realistic trade scenarios? Because I know everybody wants to talk Hendrickson and Parsons and McLaurin. There's some reporting out there, various reports now, all this scuttlebutt starting to reach the surface, that the Vikings, the 49ers, who's the third team? There's a third team that are shopping for veteran wide receivers.
I think it was the Steelers.
Is it the Steelers?
Their wide receiver room is not good.
I'll figure it. I'll find it. But it was definitely the Vikings and the 49ers. I know that. Those two teams. So
one of the best coaches and Kyle Shanahan.
The Patriots, the one thing that they might have that might not have a tremendous value, we're not talking about Trey Hendrickson and Micah Parsons,
depth here,
is Kendrick Bourne. And I wonder if Kendrick Bourne is a potential trade. And I know everybody's saying, well, what are you really going to get back for Kendrick Bourne? Well, isn't there a world where they get the old, I always go back to Jacoby Brissett for Philip Dorsett. I don't know why. It's just the trade I always go back to.
Yeah.
Isn't there a world where they could trade from a position of quote unquote depth with a team that is trying to fill a need and trade from their depth? Let's say, I don't know, just spitballing, left guard, center, interior offensive line.
Even backup tackle. I'm
not saying that you're getting a starting caliber player out of one of these teams, but maybe you can get somebody that you like a little bit more than the guys that you have in here at one of those spots for a player like Kendrick Bourne, who, if he is healthy, can go someplace else and contribute. He can be the third receiver in Minnesota. Right, he can fill Jordan Addison's shoes for 4 weeks until Jordan Addison comes back from that suspension, and then be the third receiver in Minnesota. I wonder if maybe if we're talking about realistic trades, and we're getting rid of the big star names that everybody's bringing up. I feel like the more realistic trade is the Patriots taking a guy like Kendrick Bourne and trading him to fortify their depth at another position, like tackle, guard, something like that.
Real quick, you want Steelers wide receiver room?
Yeah, it's not good.
After DK Metcalf?
Yeah.
I'm just reading alphabetically here. Calvin Austin, Brandon Johnson, Lance McCutcheon, Scotty Miller is still in the league. Ben Skoranek, Keyshawn Williams, Roman Wilson, and Robert Woods. And they worked out Gabe Davis the other day.
Okay, so the Jets are the third team, which I doubt the Patriots would probably not deal with the Jets. But it's the Jets. This is Diana Rossini.
Okay, so the Jets don't count.
49ers, Vikings, Jets.
I trade Jalen Polk to the Jets.
So is there a trade, and just looking at the 49ers like offensive line depth chart, there's nothing that like really stands out to me, but is there just a trade with one of those teams, the Vikings, who you just saw, by the way?
Right. So I wanted to ask you that because Matt Dolph actually wrote this morning on 98.5 The Sports Hub, noted, I got to pull up the thing here. I apologize, Matt. I actually haven't read it yet. I was going to do it when I got home.
Jerk.
He mentions
your colleagues.
He mentions so I usually do it while I'm making dinner. He mentions Justin Scully,
left tackle,
the backup tackle there.
Yeah.
They also have a couple backup left tackles. I think he's the favorite to win the job. Maybe not him, but he mentions Walter Rouse as well. But any of these guys, Walter Rouse, Justin Scully, Logan Brown, who I think the Patriots worked out before the draft, if I remember correctly. Tackle from Kansas.
Yeah.
We know Bill used to do this, right? You go to the joint practice, you see a player you like, you add him.
Right.
Did any of the Vikings, and I'll open up to guards too, but you were there, any of their depth offensive linemen stand out to you? It was like, yeah, this guy, like you kind of made note of him.
The one guy that has been around and has, I believe, started some games in the league is Blake Brendel, who's a guard, could play left guard.
I thought he was the starter for them.
I don't believe so because they drafted Donovan Jackson.
Oh, that's right.
So I think he's going to start, but Blake Brendel has been a starter in the past. Like maybe you look at him and think that he's better than Ben Brown.
Did he have a good week last week?
Better than Garrett Bradbury. He's just somebody that I noted on their roster. I'm not going to sit here and say I studied Blake Brendel every second of the practice, but that was something. The one guy that I
played
thought
some tackle too. That
was really impressive throughout the entire week, but I assume they're going to keep him, is Elijah Williams, the defensive tackle. He had a great game, great practice. He was really disruptive, but I think he's going to make their roster. I think he's someone they have plans for.
Well, I mean, the Patriots could use another defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Let's pull up a Vikings roster projection. Let's see. Is he on? What was his name?
Elijah Williams. Yeah, he's a good player. He's active, kind of like a similar body type, I would say, to like Jeremiah Farms, but maybe a little bit more active than Jeremiah Farms.
First roster projection I pulled up, the VikingsAge.com does not have him on.
I think he's on, but
how about the Star Tribune?
Let me look up real quick.
I got paywalled.
This is good radio. This is
great. Just me reading roster projections.
So Blake Brendel, just to tell you, last year he started 17 games for the Vikings.
I thought it was 7. I think he played in 17.
No, he started 17.
Okay.
I'm looking at it right now. Started 17 games last year, so he's a full-time starter for the Vikings last year at left guard. I just wonder if that's like a spot that they look at, right? Like left guard, maybe center, but I think between Wilson, Brown, and Bradbury, they probably can find a center out of those three guys. Left guard is maybe the one position that if you can fortify that, and then Wilson comes along maybe a little bit slower, but eventually is your starting center this year. I don't know. That's just me spitballing, but I feel like that's, if you want to be realistic of like what trade could the Patriots actually make, I feel like that's more in the wheelhouse and not the Micah Parsons, Trey Hendrickson splash.
So for what it's worth, Evan, I just pulled up 5 roster projections for the Vikings. 4 of them were fan blogs, but I didn't find their guy from The Athletic. None of them have Elijah Williams making the team.
Okay, well maybe I just sniped that.
Maybe you found a guy.
But he's a defensive tackle. I don't know if that's necessarily what we all had in mind, but
I mean, the Patriots could use some defensive tackle depth.
Yeah, Spencer Buford is on the 49ers roster. I don't know what's happening with him. Trent Williams is obviously their starting left tackle, but with Trent Williams, he's always in and out, in terms of health and all that kind of stuff. They have to manage him. They have Matt Hennessy on their roster too as a backup center, who's played a little bit in Atlanta and stuff like that. More of like a zone center, but kind of like a Bradbury, honestly. It's similar kind of players. But some of those rosters I would look at. If I was the Patriots and the Vikings and the 49ers call and say, hey, like, what do you want for Kendrick Bourne? I'd want a player.
I'm with you.
Give me a backup player. We'll give you our backup player. Everybody's happy.
I'm with you.
All right, let's get back to the calls. Patty is in Agawam. What's up, Patty?
What's up, gentlemen? How you doing?
Good. Sorry for leaving you on hold.
No, that's all right. I was hoping you'd give me a little bit of a vine too, Evan, because I got a long way to get to Grandma's house, but I will get to my question. I found it interesting, really interesting yesterday that you started bringing up Drake Maye and his processing skills on PU, and then, you had an excellent opener and then set the table excellently today, because I was going to call yesterday PU and ask you that before you even brought it up. And I think a lot of times, us New England fans, maybe the younger ones, get a little bit impatient what they've seen over the last few years and don't realize that this kid's going to be 23. Their roster isn't where it needs to be yet. And if you look at and Alex, you brought this up earlier, look at all these guys that have come into the league. Mostly, if you've played 3 to 5 years in college football and you're good, it's going to translate. I think the one guy, aside from Maye, that only played 2 years in college and came in and has a superpower is Joe Burrow. His processing speed, in my opinion, and skills is better than anybody's in the NFL's right now. So it's going to take time. That's kind of what I wanted to get at. But my question regarding Drake Maye and his processing is, do you think there's any way Josh can help him, like pre-snap, before the sound goes out in his helmet? He says, something like, hey, if they rotate coverage this way, maybe look here, or if they do this, do this. I know it's kind of stupid and kind of an obtuse way to ask it, but is there anything that Josh can do to help him, help him along the way before he gets really good at reading defenses? And that's all I got. I'll take it off air, guys.
Yeah, Patty, absolutely. But
I think talked about that on the broadcast.
Yeah, but I do think that's somewhat of a slippery slope, because you don't want to put too much information in his head, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm not saying that Josh doing that. I'm just saying at some point he's got to play.
Well, so this is what McVay did.
Yes.
McVay would be
and how did the Patriots combat that? They spun it. After
they just waited till that 15-second mark hit, and then they did everything. But no, he can be in his ear saying, check this, watch that. Like Evan said, it's a fine line. You want to help him out, but at a certain point you want to take the training wheels off, and teams may wait until after that 15-second mark when the headset shuts off to really declare what they're doing defensively. So you don't want to solely rely on that, but Josh can do that. And so what I was referencing from the broadcast, Drake Maye, I think it was Drake Maye, right? Or was it McDaniels who had told him? No, it was
Drake
Maye.
Maye.
Maye told Zoe in a production meeting that McDaniels in his headset much more than Alex Van Pelt was last year. Van Pelt would basically read the play and be done with it. Now, those plays were much longer. I don't know how much more time they had. But Van Pelt would read the play and be done with it. He didn't say what else McDaniels is saying, but he said McDaniels is basically in his ear up to that 15-second mark. So I do think there is some of that going on.
Yeah, no, and I think that can be really valuable. And to Patty's point, it might be something like, I'm going to trust you to read the initial coverage of what the shell that they're in, but just in the back of your mind, okay, it's 3rd and 6. And situationally, from a tendency standpoint, Brian Flores really likes cover 2 and 3rd and 6. That's just a coverage that they really like at this down and distance. These are all things that NFL coaching staffs scout ahead of time, is down and distance, situational tendencies, what do the teams like to play in these situations. So maybe they get to the line of scrimmage and they're looking out at it, and Josh McDaniels is like, that looks like it's this, but I know that they actually really like to play man in this situation, even though this looks like zone. And he could say to Drake, hey, just keep in the back of your mind that this could be man, right?
Right.
That type of thing absolutely could be helpful, and hopefully that is where they get to it. So I'm interested to see where that relationship goes, because I think that was a really good story that they told on the broadcast. Which, by the way, just quick aside, I don't watch a lot of the game broadcasts, humble brag, but I was home for the game on Saturday because I was doing our pre and post game show instead. They did a great job. Zoe and the McCourties, I think, are great. It's not the traditional play-by-play color guy, But their insight into breaking down the game,
learned a lot,
especially the McCourties. Like the thing that I think it was Devin. Sorry, sometimes it's hard to tell which one's Devin, which one's Jason just by their voice. But Devin was talking about the quarterback can like place the ball in a certain spot to force the receiver to turn that way because like he can see the receiver's back is to the defense, but the quarterback can see it, so you can see where the space is in the defense. So he was talking about how Dobbs put the ball on Chisholm's inside hip and Chisholm spun outside, and he was like, I bet you Dobbs wanted him to spin inside. Like just little insights like that were really, really good on the broadcast. I think this says PC's in Virginia. What's up?
Hello, guys. I want to make sure you guys can hear me before I start talking.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. The thing is, like, a lot of people want to spend time making excuses about, like Drake May's, time in college and this and that and the third. But the thing about it is that this team's the progress is going to hinge on his ability to actually deliver the ball accurately and be able to read the field. Because even with some of these teams that you guys tend to overrate as far as the so-called contenders or after contenders, whatever, they're pretty much in the same boat as New England right now. I mean, like I say, they don't have world beaters on the offensive line. They don't have world beaters at receiver. Maybe a couple of teams do, but their quarterbacks are able to deliver the ball and actually stay in the field well enough to keep it pushing, unlike New England is right now. And that's the difference. Because if you stack rosters or whatever, there's not too much difference with these other teams. The players, you really actually have some players now that actually can compete now. That's we have to say that for the first time in the last 4 years. So if Drake May does better at those things, those fundamental things, they can compete. They can compete well. If he does better at those things.
Yeah, thanks for the call, PC. I think I got most of that. I think that, look, I'm not trying to make excuses for Drake May. I'm not trying to excuse him. Like, we broke down the entire game and the things that went wrong for him in that game. So I'm not trying to excuse him. All I'm telling you is that you got to be a little bit patient. Like, we got to give this a little bit of time before we start making declarations. Is he or isn't he the guy? Or, is he or isn't he a killer? Or is he or isn't he clutch? Like, I hear all these things. We talked about the whole clutch thing yesterday, and this is going to get us bogged down if I go on this direction, but I'm going to go there anyways. About like clutch, and the nerds think clutch doesn't exist, and so they were teasing me about that, and like all these different types of things.
Do you think it exists?
I do, but I'm probably a little bit more reluctant than you want me to be about it. I can't grow up in an era where...
I was going to say, you watched Tom Brady for how many years?
I can't grow up in an era of Boston sports with David Ortiz and Tom Brady and think that clutch doesn't exist.
You ever seen that video of the Oklahoma State quarterback? You ever seen that video of the Oklahoma State quarterback? I forget. They're on the road somewhere. There's like 2 minutes to go. It's a close game. He's taking the shotgun snap, and you can literally see his hand shaking.
Yes.
You ever seen that? Watch that and tell me clutch doesn't exist. Some people are built for it mentally. Other people's aren't. You can't qualify that. You can't quantify that.
I know. I'm not arguing with you.
I know.
Only thing that I brought up, and this is a bigger thing that I really didn't want to do today, but whatever. The only thing that I brought up was that the athletes of today, the modern athlete, and I do this all the time, and I brought him up yesterday. I do this all the time with Jason Tatum, who I would go to bat for any day of the week, where Jason Tatum, the same way as a lot of athletes nowadays, gets labeled as somebody that's not that alpha, that's not that competitive, hates to lose so bad that he, is maniacal. He's not clutch. I hear that all the time, right, about Jason Tatum. He's not clutch. You don't trust him late in games, like all this type of stuff. I think you hear it a little bit, maybe not as loudly, but a little bit about like a David Pastrnak, right? Like he's a great player, but is he like a winning player, right? Yeah. These types of things. And my whole thing about
Felger at 98.5thesportshub.com.
Yeah, my whole thing is just like, maybe that's just not how a lot of these kids are wired. And maybe we just kind of have to give up on the Bradys and the Jordans and like the maniacal competitors. Like, I think Mahomes is probably the closest thing that we have. Burrow certainly has it.
Yeah.
But it's really not, Lamar gets berated for this all the time, that he doesn't have the winning gene.
Josh Allen doesn't, but how's he done late in some of these playoff games?
So I just say, like, let's just give it time. Let's give Drake some grace. Let's give it time. Let's not get impatient with his development. If we're still talking about all these different things and all these issues and these peaks and valleys and these inconsistencies at this time next year, then we can start having the real conversation of whether or not he's the guy or not. He gets 3 years in my mind. He gets 3 years to make it happen. because then you have to make a decision on the 5th-year option. You have to start, contract starts to matter. So in my mind, he gets 3 years. I'm giving him this entire year as a developmental year. Once we get into next season and we are in this spot next season, if he doesn't start to show that he's rounding out and the consistency is leveling off, then we can start to have these other conversations. Until then, it's way too early in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, like, he's got to show some progress this year.
Yeah, it's a developmental year. It's got to go up.
He's got to go up, but yeah, it's, usually midway through year 2, you kind of have an idea because you got to decide when you want to start doing work on the quarterback class.
Yeah. All right. Let's take Sean in Vancouver. What's up, Sean?
Hey, guys. Yeah, you were talking about Chisholm earlier, but I want to go a little deeper in terms of predicting where he's going to be. I mean, I see like a ceiling as the 2013 Patriots with Edelman and Amendola. And in that season, Amendola was second on the team to Edelman in terms of receiving yards. And I don't know if that's too crazy to even put as a ceiling for a guy who was an undrafted rookie. Now, do you see him like as being the 6th receiver when he makes the team, or do you think he's moved ahead of Boudet and maybe even Mac Collins seems like he's playing really well and is a really important next. So do you see that Josh bringing in that same kind of plan where you're using the players like him and Pop on the field at the same time? Where do you think it'll go? All right, I'll leave it with that.
Thanks, Sean. I think we could get there. I think we're still a little bit early.
This is what I mean by not getting ahead of it. This is exactly what I was talking about. So Danny Amendola was a 5-year NFL vet.
Big free agent signing
at that point, playing in an offense that also included Rob Gronkowski, playing for Tom Brady, or with Tom Brady. And by the way, second on the team in terms of pass catching, 54 catches, 600 yards. Like, that's, don't get me wrong, it's a solid year, but that's not usually your second receiver. It just all ran through Edelman that year. That's too high of a ceiling. That's too high of a ceiling. He hasn't passed Kayshon Boutte. He hasn't passed Mac Collins because he hasn't, like, we're watching them in practice. He's not out there with Drake Maye.
I think not very much.
Barely.
Not very much.
He's a nice, has he caught a pass from Drake Maye?
I think
this
maybe,
summer,
but we can count
in
him on
11s,
one hand if that.
I think you got him on one finger, if there is one. And I don't mean to disparage the kid. Again, he's been great, but I feel like we do this at times, and I've been guilty of this because we're not talking about the top of the depth chart this time of year. Last week and a half of the preseason is all about the bubble,
right?
Unless there's like left guard's different because there's 2 guys battling for a starting job. We're not talking about the guys that are entrenched in their positions. We did that at the start of camp. We gave Kayshon Boutte a ton of flowers for the progress he's made and continues to make. We covered that. It happened. He's going to be one of their top receivers. There's not much new there to talk about. We've moved on to talking about the bottom of the depth chart. If Efton Chisholm was going to pass Kayshon Boutte and Matt Collins, we'd have seen the evidence of it because he would have passed them in terms of reps. Like, that's literally what that is. Matt Collins is out there getting as many reps as anybody. Kayshon Boutte's still out there consistently. So Chisholm is a good developmental player. I think there might be a couple packages for him in the offense. I don't think you won't see him. Him being a featured player, I want to pull up what Danny Amendola's snap percentage was that year, if I can find it. Like, I don't know. For me, Chisholm, if he's around 20%, I think that's a good number. Danny Amendola was on the field 62% of the time for the Patriots that season. Pending injuries, I don't see Chisholm getting there this year.
Yeah.
Again, the role, when I talk about him in that role, I mean like how you're designing the plays for him. It doesn't mean that you're going to call those plays at that rate right away.
He is on the team. He's made the team. Both of us feel that way. But and barring an injury, I would say to probably both Diggs and Pop Douglas, because to me that's really what this is. Like, Diggs, I think, is going to be your starting Z or your primary Z receiver, and then Pop is going to be like a Z slot. And so in order for Efton Chisholm to play a significant amount where we can start talking about him having actual volume stats, like, he's going to have to get on the field over those 2 guys, which is only happening if there's an injury.
Yeah.
So if Pop gets hurt, then there's probably more 1-for-1 there with Chisholm to get playing time. Diggs, I think, is a little bit of a different thing. Like, Diggs is going to play a lot on the outside. I don't think Chisholm's playing on the outside.
If Diggs gets hurt, I think that probably means either more of Hollins and Booty on the field together, or maybe that's where more Kyle Williams snaps come in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that it's really Pop, and if Pop gets hurt, knock on wood that he doesn't, but if he does, then maybe there's a path for Efton Chisholm to play. And that happened for Edelman. Like that, Welker got hurt and Edelman played. So that happened for Edelman. So it's not totally out of the realm of possibility, but we hope that doesn't happen.
And
we don't not wish
point,
injuries.
Gronk got hurt in 13.
Right.
And that allowed them, they because of that, they played more 11. Amendola got more time on the
So
field.
I want to get to a preview / bubble talk here in a second, but the calls are just rolling in. So let's take a few more. Brad is in Ohio. What's up, Brad?
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Good.
Good. Just a couple of questions I have for you and stuff I've heard each of you talk about in the past. Just an observation that, in my opinion, Drake May's an A+ deep passer when Brady was a B+. And so that's just my take as, long life Patriot fan. And so that being said, if we take Josh McDaniels' offense, and Evans even mentioned this about shorter receivers running over the middle like deep overs, it seems Drake struggles with those kind of plays. Do you think McDaniels can tailor the offense and become more vertical, given the wide receivers would allow him to do that throughout the season and use more different route concepts to be different than a Brady type offense that, is basically a lot of over the middle? Brady was the best at that, and Drake struggles with it. So what do you guys think about that? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Brad. So I do think that there were iterations of the Brady offense that were more down the field. So obviously with Randy Moss was here, but even like in 2017 with Brandon Cooks, they added a more vertical element to the passing game. So I think there were, and we've talked about Kyle Williams, Brandon Cooks, like that sort of being an overlap in terms of usage of the routes that they were going to have Kyle Williams run. I still kind of feel that way, that there could be some overlap there if you go back to 17 Cooks. I brought up the size thing yesterday on PU with Pop, because if you're going to target a receiver down the field, 10, 15, 20 plus yards down the field, that's 5'8". Like that's not a very big target to hit, right? It's a smaller catch radius to hit. Not to mention, like, even if you're putting some air under it, like, is he going to be able to go above and win the ball? And like, you're not going to throw a jump ball to Pop Douglas. That's the point I was making. The one thing that I would say, because I think Pop has 9 things over Efton Chisholm. I think he's faster. I think he's quicker. I think he's more dynamic with the ball in his hands. The one thing that I would say that Efton Chisholm has is a little bit more size. He's a little bit of a bigger target than Pop Douglas is. So it's not nothing. I've noticed that the last 2 years, this year in camp and then last year at times with Pop, like there would just be throws with Pop that were just a little too far in front or a little bit too far ahead of, over his head. It was just these little ball placement things that, it could have been communication. It could have been, this route was breaking at 5 steps and he broke it at 3, or these little minutiae that the coaching staff last year brought up at times with Pop. But I also think an element of it is that he's 5'8" and he just doesn't have a great catch radius. He's just not a very big target down the field. So that's part of it. Now, that's not really a big concern when you start talking about first level targets. It's just when you start to work your way down the field, when he's winning on a linebacker, splitting the safeties in cover 2, and he's winning a foot race with a linebacker, but it's going to be like a 40-yard bomb into the end zone. Like, that's a little bit of a harder throw to make when you don't have somebody that you can trust to go up and win the ball. So it's just a little thing that I've noticed. It's not like anything major, but hopefully that answered the question. All right, last call here, then I want to get to our preview of tomorrow night. Z is in Western Mass. What's up, Z?
Hi, how you guys doing? I'm just mad at everybody. Why does everybody have to get on Drake May when Vrabel did, why didn't he do the same thing as the Vikings in Chicago did with their offensive line? That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay, so I think is he saying that they didn't make enough improvements on the offensive line?
I don't know that, or if he wants the
blame to go to the offensive line,
or did he mean like hiring Ben Johnson in Chicago?
Maybe.
They could have done more for their offensive line. Yeah, I think we said that at the time. The unit is what it is at this point.
I think they could have done one thing more, and I think that would, which is something we banged the table for on this show, which was signing a veteran left guard
or trading for Joe Thuney.
Yeah, but like, I get like Joe Thuney's a $20 million a year player. So like that, if you're trading for Joe
$60 million in cap space.
If you're trading Joe Thuney though, then you're taking somebody else that you signed off the roster. This is how it works. Like, you know that. You're not going to just shell out. It's not like they could have had Joe Thuney and, right? Like, it was going to be Joe Thuney
in
and
this case I think they could have. In this case I think they could have.
All I wanted out of left guard was the Morgan Moses of left guards. Yeah. Like, who is the veteran left guard on the market that you can sign to a 1 or 2 year deal to hold down the position for 2025 as you start to develop some of the depth and some of the draft picks that you've made on the interior. Jared Wilson, Layden Robinson, Caden Wallace, like whatever the case may be. They didn't do that. So if you want to second guess them on the left guard spot, that's why I brought it up as potentially trading for one at this time of year.
I want to make sure my take doesn't get misconstrued how I say this. I like Jared Wilson. I like the pick. I think Jared Wilson's their center of the future. I think drafting him made a ton of sense if they're going to play him at center. If they knew they were going to be so locked in on Garrett Bradbury, and maybe that's ultimately won't be the case. Like, this is why this is a weird take. But, like, from what we've seen, it's been a ton of Garrett Bradbury at center. If they knew, look, we can't have a rookie center. We need a veteran. Garrett's going to be the guy. Maybe taking a guard there instead. But I like they took Jared Wilson. Right. I would just like to see them play him at his natural position.
They feel like he can play.
Do you get what
guard.
I'm saying? Like, yeah, I'm not saying that Jared Wilson was a bad pick, but...
So I asked Doug Marone when we had the offensive coaches and not the defense, but the response that he had to my question about playing Jared Wilson at guard was that Jared Wilson swung at both guards, as he's like to say, plays both guard spots in practice at Georgia. And given the fact that he was going up against Jalen Carter and all those Jordan Davis and all these beasts at Georgia on the defensive line every day, they felt like he had enough reps and was battle tested enough at guard to maybe play guard and flex the guard, even though he didn't play guard in a game at Georgia. I'm with you though. Like, I think it's different. It's different to do it in practice again on the scout team compared to doing it in a game. Even at the college level, that's different. So that was sort of what the answer that he gave me, but I hear I would have signed, like I said, I would have gone out and signed the Morgan Moses of left guards. I would have plugged him in at left guard for the year. I would have trained Jared Wilson at center. And hopefully halfway through this season, Jared Wilson's your center. You have a stopgap left guard, and then next offseason you go back into the well to find a true left guard of the future.
Yeah.
That was the 1 second guess that you have. Now, to me, though, like, as much as we can second guess them on that, you also have to give them credit for signing Morgan Moses and drafting Will Campbell, because the one thing we haven't talked about is tackle.
I mean, we said this going into the offseason. They were not going to be able to fix the entire line in 1 year. And we knew that.
Frankly, if the one spot that they couldn't fix was left guard, I'd rather it be left guard than left tackle.
Yes, but the fact it's now becoming both left guard and center is what's a little worrying to me.
Yeah, I agree with you there. No, it's the interior. It's funny. We were harping tackle. They did sign one and draft one at tackle that...
Oh, we actually got Soto. Why did that not hit me? We finally got Soto.
That kind of stabilized that for the time being. And now all of a sudden all the problems are happening in the interior. Yeah. So it just moves the line. All right, let's talk bubble. Let's talk tomorrow night against the Giants, the last 15 minutes here. I want to read this email really quickly because I think this sets up the conversation not well. This is
the YouTube chat seems to think we have a bunch of good emails.
Okay, sure. This is from Ben in North Andover. He has some like roster clarification questions, which I think are important for this conversation. So the emergency third quarterback, I'll just sum it up here. You cannot use the practice squad elevation to make the quarterback eligible. Correct. That is correct. In order to make the third quarterback active on game day, or designate him, I should say, on game day, he has to be on your 53-man roster.
No,
it didn't change.
I think where it changed was...
They proposed it and it didn't change. I've clarified this.
Have you? Okay. Yes. I thought you couldn't name a practice squad player the emergency third QB, but if you elevate the quarterback from the practice squad, you could then name him.
That was the proposal.
That was the proposal and got shot down?
It didn't get passed yet.
Okay.
It's still in the ether. So as of right now...
No, here. This is from last year. NFLPA vetoes emergency third quarterback rule. This is NFL.com.
Vetoes. You said the word veto.
Right. So let me read it. The NFLPA nixed a league-wide a league-approved rule allowing an emergency third quarterback to come from the practice squad with unlimited call-ups. The rule reverts to the 2023 parameters, which states that an emergency third QB must be on the 53-man roster or as one of 2 standard elevations for the week. An elevated QB would have to be active. Okay, so I get what it's saying. Wait, what?
I'm telling you that you can't do it.
An elevated QB, but it contradicts itself.
I know. I know. Can we just move on? They'd have to carry 3 quarterbacks on the roster. I'm telling you, they would have to carry 3. I'm moving on to the second question. The IR designated to return question that we get a lot. So
I understand this one.
On roster cutdown day, you can place players on injured reserve designated to return on cutdown day. When you hand in the packet to the league of this is how we got down to 53 players. Yeah. On that transaction wire, you have to say, I'm just using him as an example, Kendrick Bourne is on injured reserve designated to return on cutdown day. So Brock Lampy is not eligible for this. No. Kendrick Bourne, if they decide to IR him on Tuesday in part of the roster transactions, is eligible.
So the way it works is it's not, all right, we're going to put 5 guys on IR and then we'll decide which 2 are coming back. Like you get 2 guys, you specifically say that guy's coming back. Right. And like you said, it has to be on cutdown day. So anybody that's already been placed on IR is not eligible. I think they have, and I don't know the exact injury status of these players, but based on what we've seen, I think it's pretty clear cut that there are 2 guys who qualify. It's Kendrick Bourne and Jelani Tavai.
Right, but you have to carry that player on the 90 through to cut and down day. You can't. Right. It can't be Brock Lampy. They play somebody else. It can't be Isaiah Eaton.
So I think
it can't be one of these other guys.
I think you can designate guys earlier, but you have to designate them when you place them.
I don't think so.
Oh, it has to be that day?
It has to be that day. So because it's literally a transaction. Like think about it as like this is processing through the league today.
So it'll be and again, it's not, you can't name 5 guys. All right, well, we're gonna put Bourne, Tavai, Polk, Baker, who else is hurt? Like
Kyle Williams,
right? Sure. We're gonna put those 5 guys on, and then we'll decide when we get into the year which 2 we want back. It's 2 guys. So I forgot about Kyle Williams when I said that. I really hope Kyle Williams is not going to miss significant time. Even if he's going to miss 2 games, we've seen what missing. He'd essentially miss 2 months because it would be from when he got hurt, and then I think it would be 3 weeks before the first game, right, from when he got hurt? Yeah. And then he'd miss the first 4 weeks of the regular season.
I don't think that this is – I have no information. I don't think we're there with Kyle Williams.
Good.
Bourne and Tavai are the 2.
Right. I think those are the 2 guys that make the most sense.
So with that being said,
pending obviously tomorrow night.
You posted something about your bubble. Yeah. You have a 19-player bubble, which I think says a lot about kind of where we're at right now with this roster. There's like when I did my roster projection unofficial, I had like 43 or 44 guys that I felt like really needed to be on the team, and then I had 8 or 9 spots that I think were totally kind of up in the air.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at.
Exactly. No, I'm saying.
Okay. I thought you meant that. So last year.
So that's where. But go ahead.
So, well, the philosophy behind it, if for those who haven't listened to the show before, is basically doing a roster projection the same way. Not you pick the bracket, like pick your winners, but the way March Madness puts the bracket together, because it's not the best. What is it now? 68. It's too many teams. It's not the best 68 teams in the country because, for instance, the champion of the A-Sun may not be a better team than like the 7th best team in the Big East, but there are spots reserved for the conference winners, right? So every team, and the practice squad elevations leave a little bit of gray area here, but there's less flexibility with that than people think. For the vast majority, every team's going to keep at least 2 quarterbacks. Every team's going to keep at least 3 running backs, 4 wide receivers, on and on and on, right? So when you chop those out, that gives you 14 going across the league, like using positional minimums. That basically gives you 14 spots that can be won by the best player left. But that number then that's league wide. That number on a team-to-team basis comes down further because, for instance, 4 wide receivers is the minimum. The Patriots have 5-6 roster locks if we're going to count Efton Chisholm, right? It doesn't count if you keep a fullback. It doesn't count if there's like a Matthew Slater special teams like guy who's not going to count against that wide receiver minimum. So every year that number changes a little bit. Last year I had the Patriots with 11 at-large spots. Yeah. 11 or 12. I think there were some guys that were on the fence with IR. This year I have them with 10 at-large spots, and then the flip side of that is, okay, how many people are competing for those spots? Because you might have guys like, again, is Josh Dobbs one of the 53 best players on the Patriots? Might not be. He's going to be on the roster, right? Jeremiah Farm's another guy I consider a roster lock just because I don't think they have enough defensive tackles without him. If Isaiah Eiton had been healthy, I probably would have put them both on the bubble and opened up that spot. So he's going to be on the team.
Read your, not to cut you off, it's just we have 7 minutes left.
Sorry.
Read your 19
The point I'm making is there's players who are on the bubble who aren't on here because they're either going to make it as a part of their position to get to the minimum or they're not. They're competing against the other players at the position. These guys are all essentially competing against each other.
Okay,
the bubble to me is JaMychal Hasty, Terrell Jennings, Kendrick Bourne, if he doesn't go on IR, Javon Baker, Vidarian Lowe, Cole Strange, Caden Wallace, Sidney So, Tyrese Robinson, Anthony Jennings, Truman Jones, Elijah Ponder, Jelani Tavai, Monty Rice, Miles Battle, Jordan Polk, Kyle Duggar, Del Pettis, and Marcus Epps.
Yeah, so I had a bunch of the same guys.
Let me just clarify this too.
That's a lot of names we just threw at you.
So Hasty and Jennings aren't both going to make the team.
Right.
The one might make it, they both might not make it. Same with the offensive line. So some guys have better chances than others. But that's what I have as the bubble. And like John Parker Romo, right, not on there because he's either going to make it or not. They're not going to keep 2 kickers.
So I did my own list before I looked at your list.
Yeah.
My list is a little bit smaller just because, whatever. I kind of did it off the top of my head.
Did you have more roster locks or did you just not count as many guys on the bubble?
I just didn't count as many guys in the bubble.
All right.
So I had Duggar.
Yep.
Jennings. Baker. Lowe.
Yep.
Strange.
Yep.
Wallace.
Yep.
And then I had a couple of rookies like Farmer, Swinson, Ponder. I think that they're going to probably keep all 3 of those guys.
Farmer and Swinson, I feel comfortable saying are locks.
I don't know. And then I also put, Bourne and Tavai /IR, :IR here as well. DJ James probably on the team because they just need the 5th cornerback spot, and he is the 5th corner.
Right. So that's where you get into he's not a lock in terms of he's going to start, but because they need X number of corners just to fill out the roster,
right?
You don't put him on the bubble.
So out of your group, out of this group, who can really who has the most to win, who has the most to prove tomorrow night against the Giants?
Just looking down my list, I think JaMychal Hasty can kind of solidify his spot if he's solid.
He's a nice little player. He's nothing flashy or special, but he's
a good special teams player.
He does a lot of little things.
He's a good special teams player. He's a multifaceted running back. He's not necessarily amazing at anything, but you can put him in any situation. He can be a multi-positional backup or multi-role backup for running backs.
Yeah.
If Ramondre Stevenson's banged up a little bit, which we know he is, he's in a non-contact jersey at practice, you probably want to keep 4 backs. Hasty's going to play in the kicking game. I have him on. I had him on my last roster projection. Most to win, just going down my list, Javon Baker, obviously a ton.
Yeah.
Any of the linemen, Cole Strange, Caden Wallace, Sidney So, Tyrese Robinson, I had 5 here. Lowe, Strange, Wallace, So, Robinson. You're not going to have all 5 of those guys make it. I don't think all 5 of those guys are going to miss it either. You're going to have a couple of those guys. It's basically just who is it? Who outperforms who? I think Truman Jones, Elijah Ponder in good spots. Jordan Polk, to your point, you kind of put DJ James on by default. I guess I throw Miles Battle in here too, but I think the interesting thing with Polk is if they're going to cut Duggar, I'm uneasy about them keeping 4 safeties. And that's 4 safeties. I got to double check my roster projection. I think that's 4 safeties with Schooler, right?
So it would be 4 safeties with
Schooler. Hawkins, Pepper, Schooler, Woodson. If they don't keep Duggar,
this
right?
is my point. When I was doing the roster projection yesterday, Kyle Duggar, unless you find a trade partner for him, it's kind of hard to keep him off. Just
unless he's going to be a problem in the room. If he is a backup, but so that's where Del Pettis, Marcus Epps, Jordan Polk, right? There's a safety spot to be won there. Now that might be a spot. This is where, and anytime I explain the positional minimums, people shoot back. Well, they kept 1 quarterback in 2021 because they used practice squad elevations.
Bill's crazy. Don't go. You can't go by.
Well, Del Pettis is a guy maybe they could get to the practice squad initially, elevate for a couple games, and then sign to the roster. So, but you want to make the case if you're Del Pettis or you're Marcus Epps or you're Jordan Polk, they probably should look to keep a 5th safety. And maybe it's not initially, but let's not forget the roster doesn't lock at week 1. You have a good game, and they look at it and say, all right, we're going to put him on the practice squad, but like once a spot opens up, this is the first guy that's getting signed. That's not nothing either. So I think any of the safeties with Duggar, they're going to have to sign it. If they move on from Duggar, they're going to have to sign a safety at some point. Maybe they keep 5 initially and that's it. But if they keep 4, it's not going to stay that way. They're going to have to add another at some point.
Maybe they keep Epps. They seem to like Epps.
They do seem to like Epps. But if you're Epps or Pettis, maybe that's making that case that, okay, we're not going to keep you on the initial 53, but if you come back on the practice squad, first spot we get, you're going to be the guy that we sign.
So I agree with you. Safety is a spot that's still kind of uncertain. And then the other one, like you mentioned, is those backup offensive linemen. Like out of Vidarian Lowe, Cole Strange, Caden Wallace, Layden Robinson, Tyrese Robinson, if you want to throw him in there. How many of those guys did they keep? How do they keep any of them? Do they keep a slew of them?
I think they have to keep at least 1 or 2 of them because without any of those guys, they're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're at 6 or 7 linemen. I forget if you put Ben Brown
right now I have Strange on, and it's not so much that I think that he's played his way on.
Yeah.
It's more the positional flexibility.
By default,
Like he can play center and he can play guard. So just in that sense, like Layden Robinson, Caden Wallace are one position backups.
Well,
They're both
Caden Wallace can back up at right tackle.
Maybe this coaching staff hasn't viewed him as a tackle.
That's
at all.
true.
So those 2 guys in particular, it's the same thing. They don't have the depth at tackle to really care about this, but like Vidarian Lowe to me is a left tackle backup. We've done the Vidarian Lowe on the right side thing, and it's way worse than on the left side.
So I'll give you just to kind of put a cap on it, because I do on my roster projection. When I do the roster projections, was separate than the bubble. I do like the last 3 on, last 3 off. I actually did for this most recent one, last 5 on, last 5 off, because it felt so close.
Yeah.
So this is essentially 48, 49, 52. So this is essentially player 49 through
53.
No, 57.
Oh, jeez.
Right? Because 5 on,
this
5
is a
off.
lot of names and a lot of math. And we're 2 hours into the show, so hopefully people are
right. So my last 5 on, so this would be 49 through 53. Anthony Jennings, JaMychal Hasty, Vidarian Lowe, Caden Wallace, Cole Strange. Cole Strange is player 53. Player 54 was Kyle Duggar. Last 5 off, Kyle Duggar, City So, Del Pettis. Actually, I should have moved Del Pettis up. It should be Kyle Duggar, Del Pettis, Javon Baker, City So. And then I actually used a waiver claim offensive tackle as one of my last off. Because I am still not convinced that the linemen they have now, I'm still not convinced that there's not going to be a lineman on the team week 1 that isn't on the team right now. I'm not saying that's great, but I do think it's going to happen.
So I had Bradbury, Ben Brown, Onwenu, Wilson, Strange as the 5 interior linemen. And then I had Campbell, Moses, Bryant, Lowe as a tackle, so 9 linemen, which I feel like maybe you could get Caden Wallace on there too and make it 10 like you did. I think we pretty much had the same thing, and that was maybe the one difference. I could be talked into that, but I feel like those 5 guys, Strange makes a team because of his positional flexibility. If you get into a world where your interior is Wilson, Onwenu, Brown, I don't know if Bradbury is here, so you might need Cole Strange to be that top backup on game day, positional flexibility, that kind of thing. So that's what I had, but I still feel like if I had to guess where they're at right now, trying to sort out these competitions, it's interior offensive line, like which guys are they going to keep out of that group, and safety. I think those are the 2 spots. Anthony Jennings, I feel like, is his own thing. Like that's just a system fit thing, and just do they have a role for him and all that kind of stuff. I don't necessarily look at edge as like this is a competition still. I just think it's more about Anthony Jennings, safety and interior offensive line. 2 positions I'll be watching tomorrow night. Patriots Giants preseason finale. This game's on Amazon, I believe. It's not. We're not carrying it. It's not a Patriots broadcast, so it's national broadcast on Amazon. 8:00 pregame show 6:45. Your boy's on the pregame show again.
There we go.
Second week in a row. So I'll be on the pre and post game show tomorrow night with Paul, with Deuce. Claudia's back as well. So we'll have you pregame 6:45, post game immediately following the conclusion of that game. And so we'll see you guys then, and we'll be back on Catch-22 next week. Probably next Wednesday, roster cutdowns will have happened, so we'll know the Patriots' initial 53-man roster. As always, things are pretty flexible, as they like to say, fluid. Yeah. It always changes, but we'll be able to break down that initial roster for you guys next week. So until then, signing off for Alex Barth, Alex Behind the Glass, I'm Evan Lazar. See you guys tomorrow night for Patriots Giants. See you then.
Bye.
Hey, this is Alex. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you really want to help us, make sure you like us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, make sure you follow us on the New England Patriots YouTube channel to see this show and everything else we do here at the Patriots. Thanks a lot.